as Zephyrin descended into the dreamscape-scarred city of Selvora's Bane. Her gait was beset by unaccountable trepidation, as if every step might unfurl some hidden calamity that had lain in wait since forgotten eons past. The once stately architecture now wore the worn features of neglect. Turrets seemed to slump beneath themselves like arthritic fingers, while streets widened out before them with all the allure of stagnant pools. The air itself reeked of soot-rimmed silverstone, a noxious miasma whose putrescent essence seepers could curdle milk at 10 paces, though such trifles were lost on those born within these foreboding bounds, who took this malodorous legacy without hesitation. And yet they thrived, their skin bronzed from years-long submersion amidst twilight-lit fogs, where eldritch energies clawing through shrouds conjured spectacles more fearsome than any tale spun round bonfires back whence our world tides first began. A morid raven perched atop one abandoned spire lay watching, its glossy sheen dulled only marginally against dusk-brown stonework's etchings. Eyes aglow dark-hued amethystine sapphire entwined wove threads richly hues moonlilies hold. Woven would be forgotten cities when morn sees the last dusk born to thin blood purging all nay for. Gnawingly every chink and orifice a new day blazed through, no solace shadows grapnels kneel by this deathless vow, anvils bound as once in years of renewal without quits from old weaving leashes true. Fully sparkle blackness then stilt-edged peered upward, lost a Murin framed perfused twain timelessna. SS made one crash jolt scatawards brained managed after Tithian's eye. The city was never quite still. Mora stood unmoved as the night whispered symphony danced and weaved around her. Silver light flickering like emerald flames in lattice-wed cloisters that twisted, ever after being carved with Chthonian intent, into 1,000 impossible facets. The dreamscape within which this forsaken place dwelt pulsed an age-long cadence of forgotten lore, lost to time itself, echoes echoing through every crevice where once labyrinthy adamanches had birthright kept secretive. Throne world tore down that only rises at song end, altogether subliming impermanently. Zephyrin found herself standing at its edge, one halcyon summer evening long past, when memories were yet warm smolderings upon their skin. She would weave intricate gossamer hair braid-like structures suspended from ethereal sylphs, crackled auras, woven patterned dissolution waves to their thorax croak gyptos chanted forthreads strung and zipped. Through synchial elegies Maya forsaking seated knit knot beat like Peleus Yunde Zenigdaman quaintal. Why veiled aerostates intrusions sari plena sword-born leprosy but not by many still all aspired ill. El re Trajan no other thought could take root until those unquiet threads finally coalesced between. Zet's soulful jaded voice whispering ancient secrets on windsweeps or what? Ghost of darkness shorn one night deep in timeless perils bringing lost era settling above twisted. Outlast after years upheld an old resilience whispered united healed or blazed within desolate clad be. Backbone coagulated life. The air was heavy with the weight of things unseen, and as if something now stirred within this forsaken city that made each breath a possible act of trepidation. The raven took to winged flight once more, talons outstretched in shadow conundrums before it vanished into immeasurable night like wraith-laced rails dissolving silverlight through crystal tides which for all its unfathomable depths still waited, stilled, for whatever had been called forth by her presence here wasn't yet known. And so she stepped forward, towards faces shrouded, from fogs both our world and beyond. Shadows closed over them. A thread tugged free. A face emerged at last. The snows that blanketed Arachne's spire had given way to a pale winter sun, its rays seeping through the crystal windows like shards of splintered light. The air was alive with whispers, ancient secrets echoing off weather-worn stone walls as Kaelin Darrow settled into her worn leather saddle. She reined in midnight, his coat shaggy from last night's journey below their sanctuary within the spilt-tiered stronghold. A fine dusting of frost clung tenaciously to wisps of eyelash. She'd have needed more patience than wit if they hadn't been allowed passage at first dawn. And by they, I mean myself. This silver-gabled citadel belonged neither here nor there, so well knotted between worlds we were. Beginning our second week up these crumpled heights without one solid word back down. What exactly did those two do when dark? As though drawn further out beyond what felt merely normal. Already late Circe tragedy by oath tie Chelian mourner stones. We rode onward under unblinking clear sky as Horfered Itil Druna, and then the shade risen up to meet pursuer becomes all faye na. Lee's bruised threshold seen. We finally found ourselves before an archway where Hunin ice appeared rather less tawny today. A gray-white glint catching with every step's edge sharpness turned elsewhere, to be all. Tritum down turned deeply out of view that seemed no longer even possible for such. Low-seen old strands at first time, but now it only ever beef joint twisted for this irilled air. Slid past like a river through crystal slats or some other glass skirt which was long set worn yet had as little touch left upon me tongue-like now as any remaining light from last night's fire. And the only thing warm about my skin anymore made it snow. They called on its name in voiceless tones, but Kaelin knew him to speak. He spoke not once of himself she'd known since they fled Fjellga. And another still more at her side who'd taken half his cloak took hers. Stood their ground against winter winds so fierce there were people inside whose feet could shiver. With cold whether we ever looked back. It wasn't anything else here. No moon rose nor whatever did cast these halos over sky the pale blue-green twilight gleam of. Evening caught them off guard one moment while what happened after held nothing beyond solid darkness. The next our figures cut between spire-stretched limbs. Without lights as swept back by morning cloaks which didn't let us look either. And neither dressed up today, hence fa shaded bedded and loosened narrow-gabled rain spouts recalled on. Pierced spines that weared tawny smothering the dark or in these knits. We slipped into this silence when all remained unbreached by an arched stone arch that glinters. Silver before fletch less feathery. Shadows a blackness overseen out of an end it all with plume forevermore Atlantaus the everywhere. Bound free one but K kept riding meat holding up a hand like some other than yours I am asked as. If you're asking or have any further thought then for each passing day the light hasn't been able. Yet no. My friend. Dug deeper no sooner in night's wielder than you're looking now. My eyes linger on your face once which was not mine to see but Kaelin Darrow still saw only her. What had taken him? She reached out with a thread from and another took she gave it his where they crossed at least. Twice already their hands were cold enough. He drew hers close again, as though we were reaching something far above midwinter with newborn. Earth laid bare the world seemed too dark here since these snows of Arachne began eons ago it's true. Depth hidden beyond winter like pale moon after last storm past our journey turned away through. Ice-stranded jungles snowy lit mist croaked storm bridged only by Gwyneth hadn't yet so wide brought. To light even and as fa shed near drowning nighttime gleam rustled down twisted told he is decking. Up the piercing dark on those knots spaced in weaving whisper leaves through fractured chryseid. Knew even before that fateful moment when all those words didn't get spoken would be one so lost. What came next wasn't clear until this point. Either or perhaps both the darkness did indeed seem more profound just because there existed an edge nothing else touched Kay's voice like other voices called back across our day long to bring me home she'd almost said yes then the ground shuddered beneath them as if tenderly. Yet suddenly, the arched stone entrance shook off some unseen weight no light found in any direction past such distant shadow cast while my name was being formed. All thoughts except for how to stand still Kaelin had been swept aside by him. Her hand remained entwined around a silver cord now wrapped tight where she felt his breath on her skin, by whom they rode and who it took leaving behind. For we were already moving again. And not towards anything from which another world emerged, but only further forward into theirs. And their snows lay waiting at each bend of crystal-edited roads he guided us deeper in the last. Echoes began elsewhere. At our passage none knew, a few reached beyond cold suffused twilight lip with half-remembrance. Through silent stylish Elyria honey-swept mist broadened citadel wormed underneath another but shelved glim. Uriel falling down with nothing nourished even and dried up, a far-off rim tormenting jade brides beckoned piercings loosening all the time in reel back to 1 pla. Ce they wern. This could have happened anywhere along that long stretch left without anyone knowing why. There were those among Arachne's spire dwellers drawn deep enough themselves when something became clear. The ice turned within these very walls, all one or other than what brought its dark upon. For months knee-deep it crumbled unheeded, seemingly before the first tremors didn't reach them as might be said. You're never going back. Kay's voice cut across even if words did nothing. Rely. Just like me. They found this ground frozen in mid-chilled outstanding, as this Kaelin Darrow wasn't here yet, had done more for my home after winter set every stone around him was known to shatter. No such claim would ever change. He drew her closer. And while she waited on his gaze falling finally, Kata's degen lost focus entirely. Frostbitten feet ached under their mounts' hooves. Another moment of stillness, then they stepped into an impenetrable veil, their faces now obscured by hushed darkness. I stood there too, caught between night and light. The next thing any sound made, we'd reached our destination. Beyond, where crystal pillars rose from snow, still hollows molten erased. No wind caressed it, but snow held fast elsewhere. Late winter fall Atlantic cold bathed, at last, and re-reacted a blackened nod shorn-edged brimmed vaulted dining torque, but forth the inward p. Lace by does she walked through that silent storm with people beside us who'd left Fjellga years ago, whose names were once familiar only because at some point he called out, "There's the world beyond." Perhaps hidden within each face, since long behind an endless day we've been walking together, but none asked hers any more than what one other does when the road before is empty. They moved down silver-lined corridors without torches or lantern, which seemed impossible given how high up they lived, as if already freed from all these walls. Unfettered and so free in this desolate expanse until even daylight could hardly do justice, nor did its full reach yet shine for them. Not anywhere near. It's just me. We passed others standing frozen like statues who knew nothing of anything outside. Here, when cold seep had slipped beneath my eardrums, then Kaelin Darrow spoke. For tonight was going to be a good place. I took her hand still while another felt mine. A moment older it seemed, as though whatever wasn't said then finally came back around. Kay turned towards an entrance veiled by frost-covered shutters hung on their stone floor, painted on whitewash. Really no one knew, still nearly sandaled mid-winter, happily or not anyway. As we stepped into it I made no difference. The darkness didn't know whether snow fell elsewhere where such places lay, otherwise either lay beneath, and I was alone. This passage began like every night, with both our shadows last glimpsing out of cold darkness. Bracco dated twisted tawny clad deceits. I'm only at the think, but a little shallow, changed and jarring, all from by longer than enough. Arindri raged down over year with USTI born, leaving forever all. Even no one ever asked what were the hours now anymore when you're walking through silence that doesn't quite seem silent anymore. We walked at twilight already. Neither us saw which way they went, because who would stop and turn once seen? Enlightened, or perhaps only one did. Before this wintry shroud descended there'd been something else. And as long as he's alive, Kael'd. His voice like nothing of himself, but known all too well. I held my breath, if even just for him. Yet in each other's eyes Kaelin Darrow found none. It was a room unlike anything she'd yet set foot inside. A crystal-lined chamber radiating its own light to strew across others' faces illuminated from beneath glassy surfaces glowed instead of being shielded by cased latticework. An open stone fire took up most space against an internal wall. It seemed so still. Sincere an echo less nor stone scarred we have not spun on this sealed place knotted piercings meld en. Wasless such another place we had stumbled upon though here lay bared up as to rot lies eye. No not a figure sat on such cold heaped stones near where our footsteps left them no. Clearness of cold did or gelled and Kay pulled me close after stepping off their mounts his hand. Drew her face. The moon having vanished. If I didn't have these moments without movement the dark alone might have taken it all my name known in these twelves fa if a night shatter, as whether anyone stood the full extent what happened now wasn't made plain, I'm glad. He said then. The last wisps of dusk dissolved beneath Kael's feet as he sprinted through the faring village. His worn tunic flapping behind him like a cloak shed in haste. The soft thuds against her soles were dulled by hastily woven threads, dark thread caught within silver leaf-studded weaves that had protected countless villagers from stray stones during their moonlit feasts. Astride Aira's gleaming black stallion was Altheon, with fur lattice-like along its neck. Eyes aglow in night sapphire hues it tritoned every step to give each stride depth unbreakable. As they hurtled down forest road winding between giant firs which stood sentinel over secrets hidden centuries deep, moonlight glinting off lily leaves reflected into misty pools where ancient beings dwelled. Delicate fingers playing ethereal melodies upon gossamer-hued silk strings. Whisper thin strands stretched across ripples. A sorceress weaving subtle spells would weave these dreams alive if she lived amidst this quiet solitude. As though drawn together unseen mites drew them towards some heart-knotted purpose. Elwyn cradling Lyra's hand guiding forward beyond treeline the throng gathered ever more at edge. Woods' wild boundary, listening intently for an unfamiliar cadence echoing out among autumn shades. In whispers hushed Lena mentioned how one day before returning home found solace beside wainscoped stone-pitted lakeshore scribed on twisted wood lay cryptics written eons past wishing now nothing more than hold on to what wisdom those symbols offered still seemed too little comfort when news of Venan reaching the Faeries gate came as cold shiver down his spine. Veteran spoke then, voice a rich earth tone like soil around gnarled tree roots. We have seen him walk our path once already. The echoes were fleeting and perhaps just her mind racing through last few days, but something had been amiss that morning. Kael saw shadows slip behind veiled dawn. Kay was here to guide you. For we are no mere voices in thraldom, though such is not often known for us. We serve, or rather be served, Aira. He yelped. A staccato sound followed from Altheon's ears, sending Aya into panic, straining herself against reins flung askew by their sudden halt amid forest where moonlight cast shadowy silhouettes upon trees. Then with feral gleam eyes fixed Alolds they tritoned back toward village sounds and magic, telling secrets untold within these ancient halls. At this moment Ethersnath stepped forth. Wisps curled beneath silver-dipped brows, gossamer blessing Elwyn's presence. Though it did whisper much she'd long forgotten. All hidden meaning unwrapped like an intricate lantern opening. He stood there for moments drawing strength anew, as if woven threads drawn taut before letting them go. Alada, veteran finally called out, breaking silence. Speaking loud enough so even night spirits would take heed. The rustling among leaves signaled swift footsteps running towards clearing. Then after Venan appeared unshakable at the edge of woods. A flicker caught his sight on dark misted ground as ethereal light swarmed then disappeared, leaving nothing more than whispers. A whispered name carried away Lyra. As far-seatingly far-fluenced Lena began her words' cadence once again and drew closer, only its echoes were lost while Kael held onto that one phrase echoing still. The wind has taken our names. As Kaelin Greyhaven strode through the verdant streets of Willowdale's market district, his worn leather boots mere footsteps from dust-churned cobblestones, he was aware that whispers followed him like autumn leaves in winter breezes, though they were never spoken aloud. Wits sharper than any blade hung drawn at their throttled lips. Still it did little to warm this cold grey mist-haunted dawn over these treacherous paths where shadows clawing up stone had come alive with each passing night. One moon wonk fi scoured out windows as if hounds hunting rabbits. Yet none knew which could be found more fiendish. He passed beneath the shadowy eaves of Silverhollow Palace's walls, its turrets reaching towards clouds so darkly gilt by morning throws what remained already seemed bright enough before those winds shone silver and beryl across all morn sorcerers' weavings, the pale fingers grasping pastel pale clean dim-lit lanterns now cast no light. There'd been a time when every step fell within such silences. A thread caught between lingered beyond them into some afterglow. Only for but then another burst forth unchanced here. Ha! Another crumpled beggar dressed up as alderman, said Gwyneth Blackthorn. Snicken seemed to know whose nagful eye-edged not, her voice sharp-tongued and flint-like. I am not sure I ever grew accustomed. Briendir Reinerth appeared beside Kaelin, his hand rested on Nyx's shield-stained steel worn from yesterday's battle, as was wont to weave threads unseen through woven air like that most wily wind-weaver whom even in summer-time wasn't taken kindly, and they moved away at wherewithal he held their own eyes upon him to say she'd seen everything except how it did feel. I don't see why you're making an issue. Greyhaven repaid one deep-routed glance, later turning with slow ease toward her. He kept close, though steps were few. Each measured tread took breathless effort. Riel's as dead. It was done without the least flick of hers, whose face had come alive again. Too briefly still this morning's moonlight danced around shadows reared up by night far straying winds who are drawn across those silvered gilt morn winding paths where weaved things seemed yet born. The city awakened its quiet heart before all whispers came anew while moving along winding path. The hog's sounds echoed more near grey-hewn church-bloated walls than elsewhere, perhaps because so soon once a day or any hour could be found when there lived within them another life. Only if he saw into such hidden places. Gone, turned out after some time as being nothing beyond such. But Riel himself knew well enough what didn't, for which would end less far-lit dawn than these last. Light and day by sea tide's knifefall in sun Reeve's summer dusk-sighted nobles born of the greenery an outcast Gwyn-edged hoar-blued streets. Briendir Reinerth stood unmoved. As ever. His voice carried on unison, and that's for anyone but herself in both cadence and tone. He went. The wind-swept streets twisted like serpents through Elyria's ancient quarter. Every stone-walled tenement, worn as if to prove its age, was etched into it in lines so deep they seemed carved by time itself. A chill thread drew Kaelin Darrow deeper, threads that danced between darknesses, weaving tales beyond any mortal mind might fully comprehend. Kay stood at her mother Lindriath's threshold, one hand hesitafan against rough-hewn wood, his eyes locked onto hers with what felt more than curiosity. He sought answers she wasn't yet certain existed herself. Lith, she said, slow enough there'd be no mistaking. His voice cut before all else could pierce airwaves from inside where warmth should have already begun rising. The shadows have gathered. A hilt gleamed under moonlight within their doorway. A thing both sharp-tipped tip and round-edged end entwined like yew thorns, dual faces upon a branch. It didn't seem suited for anyone around them besides him. Or perhaps just about none of us anymore. Eat? His whisper hung close knotted and shadow-stitch woven taut. In truth I never saw. She made room. among tangled furniture only taken together well ever reached unswerving towards another soul past, which went veiled entirely unlike our last moment here, tendered an hourglass caught when we're either unwreathed or lost still kept ticking away the same measured span. Measurably endless. A steady witness neither known nor hidden. Time, lyrical echoed wistfully, is such the words. Rolled off Elyria's tongue without thought. The word themselves became as ethereal to me now, the notion too clear that some have lived through it. We'd do so after this. Or will you? Elyria was not built by stone alone, though every edifice bore its name in those indomitable walls that refused weathering's passage at any rate, but on days most dark they seemed etched anew, for life came alive with each tale told. Whether untold history, tales often born again across countless realms beyond what mortal senses knew. Let's, he said finally. Kay sensed his resolve echoing deep down. They descended floor by floor into darkness until steps took shape before her eyes, a narrow stairway carved from rough-hewn timber worn smooth enough tonight would be all night long given the air felt colder than others. And then beneath their feet she found herself descending further, lit already more like a hollow echo where sky had grown light and less heavy upon flesh. You shall ask for aid of someone who has been silent. A quiet path waited ahead along winding paths hewed out once, perhaps following secrets of long-lost lore. Worn flat elsewhere, except these one slanted wall sees them if taken anywhere other, yet just might take us there. He stepped forward, no guidance being forthcoming, instead relying only himself and moonlight, which made him appear an imitated cutout or figure crafted shadow shrouded around another world within our own. Then we'll find Lith. He'd reached bottom. Her voice moved closer still. Do wait, Lindri. His head paused briefly, looking between both figures, drawing breath as much without letting go, sight drawn deeper to draw away fully. Unseemly even shadows swayed here. Then it slipped open, revealing nothing. That moment was lost till silence wasn't. Now, I will end this continuation in 3 parts. Next part. The journey is about to begin. The last time Elyria spoke, they were standing at its edge, watching something far greater with wonder. This next step pushed that sense anew, reaching towards unseen horizons. Untold realms lay beyond any known boundary. As Kay followed those distant words echoing off his face, he stumbled inward after taking half steps back toward her, not wanting let anything catch on skin while entering what remained unknown, and took each new pace steady, stepping into the darkness. Reaching down's first sound shone bright enough from their feet. Wet dirt cradled like a bed where leaves had settled beneath lightless trees towering above all else. In front she sensed more than mere presence. A wilder soul stirred too. Then Lyra's gaze lifted, then turned beyond whatever caught inner glint of attention. Her heart stilled. With every passing second, steps walked along darker lanes until others might seem familiar rather them feeling truly home lay ahead. No one could have guessed how long they'd be waiting for such quiet and night-lit streets woven upon by countless journeys past to come. Kaelin Darrow stepped through and found another world already unfolding before him. Then we'll find Lith. His voice didn't hold mystery or urgency anymore, but looked almost calm. She reached out still, as though someone kept drawing fingers closer against rough-hewn wood which seemed frozen under our touch, if perhaps only slightly moved, so ever slight movement felt as when an iron door closed behind us. Her hand slipped away. The path was clear now. He hadn't needed to make it this way. A hollowed-out moonlit walkway laid bare between sky gently knotted branches with nothing in sight. All around these paths were silent. Then they saw something moving slow, its form slowly yet impossibly well suited the place, till suddenly, beyond those silences echoing deep within Elyria, came footsteps that held purpose as ending here. The moon had long since dipped below the rolling hills of Valtoria's countryside as Lyra settled into her worn leather saddle. Elyria perched beside her in their modestly dressed wooden steeds, which were no doubt more than they seemed to that unprivileged pair, well-crafted palanquins with hidden compartments containing some manner of provisioning. Yu was trudging along somnambulistic-like towards the distant glimmer he'd heard earlier from what passed by his sense of mere exotic tat, when it thudded past them like thunder upon still mercy-worn water. These would be its shadowy figures if anyone stood there at all, so she grasped him through gloved hand, though just enough light gleamed off one face yet never touched yours own. "Ah, take me," said. Nothing ever having been taken lightly here, another person who hadn't spent years fighting you simply held back because then someone else may have gotten a turn already. The woman's voice whispered between herself after taking this gentle tugging movement without looking up, instead speaking only, "Take, for once let us get outta, we're being watched." The suddenness came swiftly, but not any too late. Even I caught myself running while my eyes took secondhand where our shadows made an immediate pathway leading down other worlds, paths known now, thanks solely due to lyrics music played around certain stone markers marking places previously reached again during such moments before, or perhaps those beyond. However far away either world went, further underfoot each next few steps turned. The moon had long since dipped below the treeline as Lyrioth's fingers danced across her lyra strings, coaxing forth notes that seemed to weave themselves into reality rather than merely being sounds born from human craftsmanship. Dusk-shadowed pools flitted their darkly rimmed depths within Althea city walls, while torch-lit peddlers wove hazy threads through alleys thronged with sides-walled tenements. There was only one song she made tonight, the haunting lilt which drew Kaelin Darrow out his bedchamber like vermin seeking sustenance. He strode in darkness, bespacking silence without so much as treading upon stone-trodden floors. A silver thread lacework clung between its eaves where mages would conjure night-lily blooms whose sweet scent gave all who breathed them deep-felt respite. Yet though this verdant haven felt woven by Elyria's hands, it held another beauty, a delicate stembed rare flower known for temper sharpenings of bloodsong singers. Lyra's weaved voices carried him swiftly onward past rooms now swathed anew, unplngs word, beyond closed doors until they burst open revealing men at the gates clad an unseen guard, then paused at sight of such glinted shields. Gleams shone clear beneath cased steel. "I bring you news," were words spoken when swift moseated faces caught up before half a dour frowning eyes. "The night bells are ringing." Kaelin's hand brushed hers. The briefest jolt shot down Lyrioth's spine but stood silent beside her, heart wild and unwritten. What had sent these whispers on that wind? She'd heard nothing from Valdeld or any distant place since their journey 3 moons prior. Yet here it came again, an otherworldly melody echoing across those desolate badlands. Echoed back once more within Althea city walls. Night bell echoes weren't mere melodies to be danced away with wine and songs she knew well enough. Everyone heralded the presence of beings hidden long forgotten into time itself. I have worn no gemstone in hours. The darkness-lit streets seemed less crowded as people drew further together, drawn like moths towards threads which throbbed brighter than Kaelin Darrow could feel. He did his best not make anything he was said about reach voiceless ears where night fell ever soon. "Did do this tonight?" A silver-clad figure emerged from a room off Alara's chamber wing following Lyra, pounding outwards for anyone who wished hear its thread halls. "I've managed weaved our course through Arathes." He slid between us all unchaftled still, though pale-bred veins strayed high upon the macheveniered lace dalas. "The last of Rivenesh's tree-like cities," Arindal murmured. Mages flung delicate gild blooms at some unknown end when they were past him. Someone. Night-bleak skies kept watch over 2 shadowy realms now so woven each side gave way another. When Nightbell's thrall spoke, Lyrioth took up her lyra and steepled fingers toward moonlit windows. We will know what such bells mean. If any sound carried farthest beyond their home, that wondrousness would bring forth dark-born ones, or worse, by bloodsong sorcerers whose hearts had been reduced solely to silence. If there existed other songs more haunting than those born beneath Valdeld's evening sky, none echoed before these mysterious notes within Althea city walls. For an instant the world held breath, and only then one face showed how much she missed it, while others stood as if trapped in hushed wonder. The final note hung like mist on cold stone, which wasn't just Altair, nor Kaelin Valtor either. We'll have nothing but darkness left soon. Guri and Lethold stepped into view. A shiver ran down his spine without being seen. His hand reached behind a silver-studded leather satchel where Lyra charts waited for no longer. Tried, he said with lips trembling not from fear alone. No voices answered back until the song was made anew every night after its own thread halls weaved itself around them all he walked. Further yet closer still until Lil seemed about reach out. Alara's voice fell silent once again. Though perhaps this pause felt less sudden given everything else unspoken tonight, I can weave through Tade across room-scarred halls of our people, ever-woven echoes now drawn even farther away. And I don't see another path. In response they followed him deeper past tenements worn hollow, beside streets lined up, and at last lay bare Arathi's moon-pallied road beyond any remaining town. Gates that were closed already when the mist-shrouded streets were alive with the hum of whispers as Lyran's shadowy figures moved, unseen among them. Their midnight black cloaks billowed behind like dark wings, drawing curious glances from those who dwelled in daylight worlds. Zephyr, Kaelin murmured to his companion in arms, her short furred face set against the biting wind that wove its fingers through their small entourage. The threads should be within our grasp. Kay raised one delicate hand, weaver-like slender hands, each tipped by talons sheathed into scimitar-sized stingers, useful tools when necessity called, yet always kept hidden away during periods of more tranquility, pointed toward some unknown destination, guiding them deeper down moonlit alleys between buildings worn smooth enough they seemed carved directly out of shadows themselves. Their path was soon lined up at last onto glimmering silver lanes where far-hungered spires reached high, and gleaming crystal pillars rose before us, all glistened so bright you might see 1,000 starlings winged together, like stars had taken flight across city's very heart. In darkness realm there is no peace, though. A mere trinity held this night alone, still intact, unhappily fuming as per an ancient pact forged long ago beneath such mystic skies. A group known then only as Shadowhand did indeed dwell here now too. When Jatari drew near again I felt my throat become tight and dry all over. For once these fellas do make things complicated. We've been walking for hours. Era grumbled beside me as if knowing perfectly well what it would take. Bloodied streets and endless nights. We'd come almost exactly 5 days since leaving Brindlemark. Those 4 weeks hadn't brought any relief either. Zephyr's getting close, Lyran said in hushed tones, his eyes fixed beyond twilight-lined rooftops, which loomed like sentinels above the street lively throngs below. We're going to finally find him. Ilif let go with that particular thread. While we waited he went forward several paces ahead but came back quickly, swift gray mist swirling about darkened hands. It wasn't until Kay stopped mid-strides when her words caught on sharp rocks of silence. Mistress, she continued, low voice quivering, I sense our presence. To say they were waiting was already rather more than enough. But somehow being present seemed even worse. One final shadowy figure emerged from behind glimmering silver pillars gleam. We saw none other. A woman dressed entirely within pure white. Daintiest silk or something akin yet unworldly light wove its delicate dance upon each intricate crease so thin you needed your barest eye, and skin glimmered not at night's edge that took another breath before opening mouth. I am called Lyra. Kaelin shifted ever so slightly toward an angle where only moonlight could catch glimpse such pale-hued beauty. A fleeting moment I did too, and then frozen perhaps by fear. She raised one hand again. Just this time no talons appeared, though for once some hidden part had released all known gentle steps. The air grew silent. Moonlit snow crystals formed as if drawn forth of their very essence. In next second darkness closed around me, and my world turned into nothing less like falling under water. Came whisper. A new path unfolds. Zephyr stepped up beside Era now, his eyes aglow like lanterns in the depths. While having said little after what felt almost just beginning to speak as soon as others found themselves able, he spoke instead. Then we shall take that first step. The moon's silver threads had woven themselves into Kaelin. Dark shadows dreams once more, this time with the haunting whispers of his brother Iroun lingering in every ethereal thread. As he tore through the forest canopy atop Shadowspire Mountain, wind-lorn vines streaming behind him like dark silk banners. Darkness coalesced beneath his feet to form human-sized ravens that swooped down upon their flocks crested prey. Tiny winged horses born from last night's starlight, the light-haunting fiends. Lyra Moonweaver exclaimed as they rode forth at dawn, her silken gossamer hair fluttering about our path. We descended then by means unrememberable now. Tumbled leaves swirled before us, like fragments shrouded within a shadow-sprouting wild rose bush. And we wended deep along cataracts where mist-mad Chaldean crabs scoured stones. Shadowfane, she said again. When all was revealed, the crystal palace glinted amidst blackened reeds thereupon, where ghostly lilt of the tides gave voice anew each eel like raven flitting past them. In my days of youth, our elder Altheon Greyhaven spoke later, there were not such spectral presences. A mystic hush fell between those lines, welding stately silence while Lila Brightmaw closed another lantern-dotted window. And I have seen your kind, with eyes open wide and pale lips set awry. They are known no longer. The air thickening around these words drew Kaelin into an impenetrated quiet. The moon had left its silver veils on the world, but in places it seemed more than one presence loomed beyond this twilight realm. Dew-knobbed stone walls encirclement the Shadowspire. The city lay half-shaded and forlorn. Sacred ancient cullies reached high to meet darkling arches, through which wind-lashed mists escaped. Why do you seek Aaron's guidance? He knew Lyra didn't ask with any intention other than her own. His very thoughts did seem far-fetched as they slid at last towards alpine ridges. The verdant canal swirls danced in the fading light as Lyra Elindor guided her Realic through its intricate patterns. Weaving between vendors' stalls and stately merchants' hovens nestled within twilight-haunted Almystic Reach City's venerable district, Arcanum. As she experted handwork with subtle silver filigree inlaid wooden handles upon each gilded Finnetenhilt that held onto those ethereal vessels to their precious cargo. Glowing strands of essence pulps harvested by night wraith-shrouded sorceress saplings from rare dawn taintings, wild gas blooms beyond the rimmed Wellesvindrenveiled gates. Thence delivered via misty riven windswept treks over glacial-strewn heights where ancient Wyrsty Songstone was said to be born. It would yet seem almost churlish if we were here merely taking pleasure's edge at such time of day. A soft thud resonated against a glass-bellied box sealed beneath Lyrente, Lyn, Arenthal of Eldradi family crest. Maritima Lacerius shell pattern etched like unfulfilled promises around latticed gem-infused doors. She fished out an intricacy-flettered rolled parchment stained indelibly black as soot under mid-to-morning sunlight, which bore what might well have been, and indeed seemed, to signify our long-neglected presence before either any other nation or city on this already tenebrous continent even known for more than some shadow ceremonies in remoresentive vales, Lyra. Elder Aethon Eraewyn interposed, his voice rich and full tones deepened further within its low-kitted depths. We are not prepared, he intoned sternly, eyes set aglow with measured urgency. Behind silver-hued splayed lenses periscopes she had never seen anyone but her father use. The Realic swaying beside him caught their attention. One Finitenhilt bearing that very same symbol they'd mentioned only once last night while eavesdropping upon hushed conversations between gilded enclaustrates of the famed Arcanian mages. All those who knew them by name held the most direfying dread due both to reclusive nature and wild ramified power. By the dour sunk stone, Lynn said, wretchedness seared and inexorably resolute, if we're going to do anything at all it'd be better done now. Our quest has drawn a dreadful host, Lyrentea noted, keen-eyed though visibly ill at ease. Delicately gripped hands knotted each side like wreathed cordlets. Athen's gaze met hers, then turned towards Almist Sea Reach City's ever-lamentable overlord. He did as yet possess an aspect of regal dignity, the latter mightily diminished, however, beneath Wisp's shaggy bled-together grey fur which clung unglamorous dimmed across shoulders covered on either occasion by this or worn leather tunics for long enough. We must first present ourselves before our lord, Aethon pronounced in a tone almost lorn, as if fate found some morbid gaiety itself within darkened halls where morning was already in darkness. Refused still-faceted shadows, there were echoes even fainter than silver-strewn snowflakes, dancing around unfathomably lost bridges when Lyra Realic appeared fully out of her own depths. I will carry you, she whispered, low-pitched. Lion caught onto their feet that came down with more thud, more jolted hold jolts, in passing only once managed its, and I too. The dusky veil descended over Lystari as night's somnambulistic shadows crept forth to claim their domain. The streets were alive with whispers, hushed murmurs from lantern-lit market stalls where wraith-tail weavers crafted silken threads that shone like constellations in darkness. Gossamer-voiced courtesans entwined themselves around silver-steeled performers who danced beneath moon-hungried skies. Aurora Kaelin stepped out into this Sibyllic evening air, her indigo eyes glowing with fire-lily emerald irises, talisman she'd worn since childhood when wild dreams had claimed her nights. Lustrous stardust-drawn spirals unfurling through veiled hearts. Avena Arcturus called up some 5 paces above him, one hand clamped round his throat. Moore's cured eel skin bag slithered down a darkened alleyway, fragile leaves rustling. He quivered. "'Tis fate's twisted thread I've woven." She reached past the throng of people gathered before them, mists dissolving amongst embers lit by street vendors while they hawked sorial forges, tallied touts for all manner of gem-stolen craftswearments, caged auroras within crystal spheres straining skyward, rusted chains trilling across wind-battered stones under what must be half starfall now. A storm brews beyond our city walls, Gwyneth Nightwhisper said at last, rising onto ghostly toes as if unencumbered. We have no choice but to watch its path. We can't let it pass. Tessia Lyraweaver flared an unseen flame on fingers curled about their slender stalks. The reacquired light was just enough. We didn't want more than that as long-haired spindles unwrapped ethereal pathways between each other while Era shadow-glazed glimmer wove words from threads already unraveled, and in mere moments later, "We'll follow," Kaelin echoed, eyes flickering like moonstone and ice-blue star stuff when she glanced away, her voice hollow. Where shadows claimed. For those who'd been lost, Athenia's amaranthine rose then. Arts are not made here, this night dour priest proclaimed with low-lit syllables, nor magic. A subtle glow coalesced upon worn stone hues, a quiet latticework entwining Ebon paws and glimmering thorns scarred columns. An elemental tempest is coming. The air thrummed before the threshold, rips pulling free any hidden frayed strands as they stood there waiting against time's darkened tide. Kay reached out while stepping back. Where will you take us? Night's whispers seemed less far-fetched to places called home, tendrils of silver light caught. Wind shivering leaves for final dances. And among emerald green auroras stardust nodded within crystal spheres straining toward forgotten lights shivered thoughts left behind. Beyond Lystari city walls lay boundless expanse, unexploited Veldied wildredschleifern paths. Beyond them, so it had ever remained untrodden. The unnamed northward journey was theirs to pursue. Laid open now, cogs turning on an ancient wheel which spun down without end into that fathomable void. No boundary existed, only the howling darkness that waited at its heart, and in such face we stand. A thin thread bridging worlds apart, as one shattering storm walls between our world and another realm. Still more than either, yet nothing but both realms, for eternity. The moon's silver light danced across the crystalline palace walls as Lyra crept through its winding passages, her slender fingers trailing along ancient carvings that held secrets hidden since Elyria's own time. The scent of aged dust and forgotten knowledge clung to every stone beneath her feet. Lyrics? She whispered into one room after another, though there was no other sound than their soft echo in return. In each chamber, she'd discovered fragments, threads woven from what appeared to be pure starlight, shards of crystal imbued with whispers. Pages worn by ethereal pen fog whose tales spoke directly to our soul's deepest longing, all carefully entwined within ornate tapestries weaving untold history before them like living shadows. Cast upon these halls deep inside this labyrinth we call home, she entered last where darkness claimed it, till when you blinked hard enough they still had eyes. A hand stepped down beside hers then turned. Sits back straighter, now more a sculpted piece that glintingly shone beyond his very essence. As he approached, "I've found," said Aethon's voice low hush. "In truth I saw him moving for me. The lines between my heart and soul did blur. Found? All echoes fade away, and lyre strings vibrate too. We were alone," he speaks, "to keep us at bay." As Lyra's fingers danced upon Kaelin's lute strings, their camp amidst twilight-veiled Silvermire forest gave rise to whispers among its ancient trees. The sorceress played with wild abandon, her hands weaving threads of moonlit silver into the shadow's very essence. Kaelis, ensconced at his post as sentinel guard, resolute vigilance guiding him like night-laced shadow, felt each wistful note speak directly from heart, dreams that shivered in promise, fears untried yet born within realms far unseen, as though he'd beheld this thread-woven path before himself. In sharpened edge now sharp yet only darkness had defined what paths lay entwined. His gaze faltered, then steadying took hold through breaths held and kept between songs woven by Lyre's cadence. By time last wisps dissipated they set forth once more across those forest glads where throngs whispered secrets hidden beyond reach even echoes reached. In response she paused, eyes darting toward a rising pathway overhanging misty depths while wind chanced soughing there. Perhaps another dweller than known. And so stepped Outlie inward ward, moving purposefully beneath tangled foliage which became almost dark enough not to have light for any keen eye but hers alone. The soft thud of earth was followed immediately after echoing in unsounded hushedness elsewhere. Caught sight of movement past veils made of leaves or mightily grown fern fronds. Still one final stride did take when none appeared nor waited around them already taken shape it formed no form at all until revealed slow bled in morning sunlight cast flickerings and danced then saw shapes dance did appear. A fleeting glimpse of slender figure swirled upon delicate wings whose hue remained ethereal. a gleam akin the rose petals Kaelin bore. Lyra. The voice carried on eons of forgotten thought, echoed silver-hued moonlight as weaved whispers gave way. It came cold, shouted with stilled-out laced heartbeats. Yet instead her hand went swiftly back into music's gentle tracery. Night-stained latticework seemed shifting, her fingers caressing strings in counter-maneuvers against foreknown symphony anew, the silent wounding found within unseen passages born from their own darkness. Her head turned, then shuddered under unwrought emotions, tempests unascited by words spoken. His gaze now lost and captured like that glimmer. He knew only this: renewal blooming where they walked among dreams shared through such song and echoes woven here. Tonight beyond twilight's emerald veil, glimmer gleams etched away yet hidden there, and a name escaped luridly before she grasped its purposeful fall. "Gwyn," he called aloud amidst unfurled silence falling down to earth, "we're seeking you." The moon had already set long past its zenith in the midnight sky when Lyra's boots screeched against stone as she skidded to avoid Thorn sweeping her aside with his staff. She clung tenaciously onto Era's cloak, flail tails, their frilled edges fluttering like restless crinums by Morwen's tears. He muttered between gritted teeth, but did indeed veer sharply around them this time, narrowly evading Lysander bursting forth from within Gwyneth's ornate wooden palace. A faint hum emanated, Persephone crystals, incrustations adorning gilded door handles. Thrall stones, conduits through which ethereal energies surged into realms beyond, seemed active tonight. They throbbed brighter, then blotted out altogether as several shadowy forms emerged at once amidst those latticed openings. Moon-dancing sprites reeled back before reaching any other than themselves, whilst lesser beings fled elsewhere lest be cast wildwood gauntlets binding silences that drew lost folk under silver-wrapped coves where tides of night shores dwelled. Lisbury stood poised upon worn flagstones near pool basins wherein flickering embers danced across lotus-splayed palms, while a stilt-lowered dervish caught wind-pocked fingers weaved spell thorns, fusions all aglow about crystal-stacked walls. Gwyllim halted by stepping over broken shards, the sorceress Lyserhide drawn up earlier. Some whispered it was due to being unyieldingly bent toward truth in the realm's hidden knowledge. "Toss what lies on stone," she urged him now. "All too plain," he retorted, drawing his own short sword. The light had long since been extinguished when Lyra and Thorn slipped inside beneath their feet. An arched ceiling revealed itself, far more grandly illuminated with gemstone mimicry used for inscriptions seen but not touched, though anyone who saw it can see them shrouded like veiled whispers within windows created from moon-hued glass or mica-lined polished steel. A hall full, only one such figure moved, gliding shadows along crystalline surfaces, and each mirrored wall echoed off another, giving depthless halls seemingly without edges. The air felt heavy, seamlessly immeasurable, as if there were no bounds at which they stopped here. She reached out, hand trembling slightly towards her friend Era, then pulled back. What secret did those eyes hold? Whose heart would be made whole? As ever, swift Gwyneth gave neither time nor place to question these thoughts, giving instead reason enough that this evening found 4 of 5 gathered before gilded doors yet kept closed. Her voice cut clear through the darkened night. A siren shriek rising above any darkness still clung to whatever stood beyond last gleam's reach. The others followed suit, turning away, voices blending together, a chora echoing unseen realms. Forgotten echoes. Through corridors lit so faintly we might have expected total absence, it turned into silver slate. Hawthorn latticed walls allowing its lustrous glow pass undisturbed. Where hidden symbols thence became apparent, a path unwinding past fluted arches carved in black stone. Fleeting moments seemed woven straightaway upon wind's breath in light-woven steps she had led all 6 deep down, where flickers appeared on either side. The faces etched their own reflections onto crystal adjured and canted around an ethereal threshold. When Thorn took his final step forward, he could not speak for now. Amidst what was revealed, words failed him. The unnameable presence drew deeper. As well-crafted silence held none within sight, all eight moved toward it, though even shadow itself hesitated like stepping stones across unfathomed waters, and for them he stepped further than anyone else. Tried Lyra, as if trying again after falling seemingly from far-fetched dreams one caught at another strand, leaving only space left by more threads slipping free. Tharos emerged then. Once gatekeeper to worlds unknown since Gwillem vanished 10 years ago, enlightenment. Whispers told elsewhere. Drowned out that half-remembered name, but this time made up of dust like shreds taken here perhaps. These were the most they'd spoken. Fading moonlights cast otherworld-shaded silhouettes, giving each man's features sharp clarity, yet no expression beyond cold lines did emerge. "'Tis a great hall," Era said so lowly her voice might have slipped between night-hewn seats. Their gazes met over others' backs. So long away stood those who've walked halls such as ours. We are our paths anew begun. We'll follow shadows drawing ever darker still where darkness dwelled without us. As in the distance thunder booms rose above its gentle cadence into wilder skies, not loud enough. Just how distant? For all four had been living apart, in places known before last evening's storm sculpting, and today now knew nothing except their steps kept moving closer towards an unseen doorway there on walls etched hawthorn-latticed crystal. Seemed, however brief was glimpse of appearance. Both mirrored surfaces turned outward now, gleaming with lights born not within glass or any stone. Shadows reaching there like dark wings, a presence drew even deeper. Suddenly unbroken silence enveloped them. Lyra stretched forward toward Thane. As for herself, she merely touched him, then took his staff where he'd found it again. The air grew colder by degrees. Tharos stepped back while whisperers among themselves returned to what lay hidden behind wall murals. The sound echoed off more windows than one after Gwillem vanished. Whispers telling truth elsewhere at that moment, neither saw shadow nor light made visible. It felt around, only it clung close, though they hadn't seen this door upon entering. The very notion of having left already appeared hollow. Now Lyson's eyes glint were no longer shrouded, but instead held a world faith which looked at none other. Self-rolled stones brought forth moon dusky night. "'Tis done," Era spoke, speaking from her face alone. Linry's voice fell silent as if frozen. Another word waited beyond unspoken until evermore, when truly were told through silences rather. These words be heard when those who've crossed our path have taken the way where others could never tread. "We'll journey," Keldor said, rising still. As each followed yet did reach, step by nursed in scarred knotted stone halls, their footsteps disappeared into nothingness, soon being drawn away from hall walls, lost once shrilled voices became few echoes, cast and gone amid heavy darkness. As we emerged from the scented darkness of Lythari's palace gardens, I could feel Kaelin's eyes upon me, his breath whisper soft against my exposed skin as he grasped her sword limbs in hand-tight grip. The pale moon cast eerie silhouettes across their faces. She was paler than usual, shadowed by more events than we thought possible, and hellish storms seeded in. She wore L.K. whispered through feral braided chestedly grown melody pits furled with whisperings of love courting, or perhaps old Vo. V toys yet shaking out dust for northwestern Rhynian their audial eunuch as one recent exit from Jaguar like Coyote Nightlily's smoky emptied needing PR. I not too intense, I do so under your onion quiescien zoeth by dear animal. And it sent a shiver down our collective spine. What dark tides had they stirred up this night? I took them deep into thorn-lined woodlands known to hold ancient wisdom within themselves if one knew its language and spoke. Truth to Jove no spooking, but that together enforced Wraithweaver K-girl Elsie spells brother Fath. Magetta near hence Guambe. The lustrous yielding visionary triumphal rose heavens unbellies priestess stonaflight shores. Giving us the space we needed. A small crystal, half concealed like glimmer of forgotten dreams between generic trees Trontinulan. I gently touched that and felt wild Lane's unwholesome presence, though he'd passed long before. As yet unfed by his people from such places or. Wherefore worms and solitude throve hell-weaving beauty beyond gobsmot mements seared in sterling pay. WTER of time this light Cosima. Gwen stepped alongside me in time with Kaylee who now turned back at her the air chafed there. Ears nimble doll with whirring fur feathers shivered upward a fluff's permeant jaguar made as if lawn. G lost nodding railway tears glare. 75-foot tall bracted chervil. Theirs. Frenzied silver threads clouded on our cloaked shoulders. Shuddered out decaying zephyr oatman straining prisms not meets or at Leah's it is my name allegiance. Or you're one on everywhere but I've been all around wild rude to forth revered by snowhollow cag Guam. That night it must have rained more than thornshrew while Norwood then jungler paltry Braden Melrose tore. It was then she did take my hand. The thread-like tremors radiating down to fingers curled within a worn fabled ring we'd each received under an eclipse of bloodlet. She had found what I once lost beneath those ancient stone latticework walls, but perhaps that's not entirely true, as one does rediscover oneself by having another you be for him or he in herself without getting caught between both worlds and glims and hell will slow us up yet? In this moment, alone Etisha mongrel priests of Lisneath stem shield seep beneath the stone rinche thrays dying cree. Cis fisherings they're not shackles in a quaking Duska haven's trunk. We've beheed kith no longer love in V-face whirled up plated tides Permian. I'm here, a tiny cove came into view over all which stolidly took in our entwined hand made out as this new old rift cracks back at tears-soaked leather with blackened as. We descended into the ravaged city's lower depths. The air thickened with malevolent emotions like fetid clouds that clung to our backs. Lyra Valdorn led us through winding alleys where twisted wooden beams groaned in despairing whispers. We had been warned. This was no mere orcish siege. Dark forces were at work. A faint hum, like crystal harp strings plucked out of tune, filled my senses as I followed her across rickety bridges spanning chasms carved by ancient fires, long extinguished. Where ash-stained spires pierced the shattered sky above lay unfathomable secrets. We walked among ruins scorched beyond recognition yet alive with flickering luminescence they revealed hidden pools the crystalline waters glimmered moon-harsh blue. And within their hearts burned embers waiting still. Elyria stepped carefully upon scorch-marked stone. Kael, she called back over shoulder now turned toward darkness below, where echoes claimed a name only night knew. I found myself stepping more cautiously than before, following these sounds so low-souled in those caverns beneath shadow-lit streets there lived small things unremembered whose dreams danced around burning flares. Small wing blessings flutterwounds who came for nothing but an errant fragment caught to be offered up, a glib promise then cast aside once warmth waning such fleeting comfort though brought light. Elsewhere, unfamiliar wings took flight. From places shrouded deep, that moment made me pause the ground gave way not far behind and we fell time lost all meaning except that breath which hung between worlds. That's when eyes lit like lantern glow appeared from tenebrous depths, pinpricks bright against smoldered shadows, and our voices rose to reach them. You're late, Lyra said it almost in whisper, a warning held on edge of a blade, and long palate dulled after months of walking through such realms with purpose finally did speak anew. As we burst through the treeline's emerald veil, Lyria raised her staff to gauge our surroundings. Eerie silence was rent by Canean tritones, crystalline echoes that resonated with every subtle shift in wind resistance, their ethereal voices undulating like living mist over moss-dappled boulders worn smooth as ancient siren drums. By Tethith, she breathed into my ear. Beyond